Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Fiber Broadband Association's Five for Breakfast. We're now in our 24th episode of 2024, and before we kick off, I'd like to thank Wesco, the platinum sponsor of Five for Breakfast. In Washington yesterday, the Department of Commerce announced that NTI has approved the deed initial proposals from New Hampshire and Colorado. That brings us to a total of 10 states and territories that now have their BEAD approvals. New Hampshire's been allocated 196 million, which used to be a lot of money, and Colorado now has 826 million. So together, it's about $1 billion now in play for fiber deployment. Last week, the Fiber Broadband Association held one of its regional Fiber Connect workshops in Deer Valley in Park City, Utah. What a fantastic event. And the end of next week, I'll be heading out to Lima, Peru, where we'll be holding our next Latin America Fiber Connect conference. Our last LATAM event was in Puerto Rico, and that was sold out. We actually had to turn people away, but then I expect Peru to be just as fantastic. Our next event in the U.S. is our annual Fiber Connect 2024 conference in Nashville, July 28th to 31st. We are expecting a record attendance again this year, and registration continues to be running about 30% ahead of last year's record. The Gaylord only has 2,880 hotel rooms, and we've already had about that many people register. So if you haven't registered yet, please do so ASAP to get your hotel room at the Gaylord. We'll also be opening up a overflow hotel for those of you who are slow at finalizing your travel plans. After Fiber Connect in Nashville, we'll be back on the road in Des Moines in September, Calgary in October, and Albuquerque in November. So we look forward to seeing you at one of those workshops. That brings us to today's Fiber Breakfast session. Our guest today is Sanjay Nagpal, the director of go-to-market for Taara at X, the Moonshot factory. We'll be discussing expanding fast, affordable broadband with next-generation free space optics connectivity. But before I formally introduce today's guests, I'd like to introduce David Norris from team who's going to walk us through some housekeeping items.
Thank you very much, Gary, and good morning to everyone who's joined us. Before we go over a few logistics, we'd like to once again thank our platinum sponsor of Fiber for Breakfast, Wesco. Now, if you would all please keep in mind, all participants are in listen-only mode today. However, you can ask questions. To ask a question, please use the question box located in the control panel on the side of your screen. We will have that Q&A session with our panelists at the end of today's session. Also, this presentation is being recorded and will be available on FBA's website within 24 to 48 hours. And you can find that recording in the Events tab under the Fiber for Breakfast drop-down option. And at the conclusion of today's presentation, you'll be prompted to complete a brief feedback survey. Please take a moment to do so. We appreciate the input. With that, I will pass things back over to Gary to once again introduce our panelists and get things started. Gary?
Well, thanks, David. Good morning. I'm Gary Bolton, the President and CEO of the Fiber Broadband Association. Last week on Fiber for Breakfast, our guest was Bill Hogue, the CEO of Gigapower, who joined me in a fireside chat this point discuss a joint venture between AT&T and BlackRock to deploy a wholesale open access multi-gigabit fiber network to cities outside of AT&T's footprint. I could listen to Bill all day. He has been president of pretty much every business at AT&T and has such great experience and vision. So it's just really amazing to be able to spend some time with Bill and talk about what he's doing with Gigapower. Today on Fiber for Breakfast, our guest is Sanjay Nagpal, the director of go-to-market for Taara at X, the Moonshot factory. That's Google's super secret R&D shop where they invent and launch breakthrough technologies that we hope will make the world a radically better place. Sanjay is going to be discussing expanding fast, affordable broadband with next-generation free space optics. Sanjay is responsible for leading all sales and business development and channel development activities at Taara. Sanjay has over 30 years of global sales and market development experience, and prior to joining Taara, Sanjay was the Senior Vice President of Global Sales and Business Development at Comtech Telecommunications Corp, where he helped capture some of the largest commercial and military SATCOM programs. Sanjay holds a MSEE in electrical engineering from Virginia Tech and MBA in marketing and finance from the University of Chicago, the Booth School of Business. So welcome, Sanjay. And for audience, please type in your questions to go, and work those into discussions. With that, let's get things kicked off, and I'll turn it over to Sanjay.
Thank you, Gary, for the introduction and for hosting me. Hello, everyone. My name is Sanjay Nagpal. I lead the go-to-market team at Taara at X, which, as Gary explained, is Alphabet's innovation engine, where we are tasked to solve some of the hardest problems using breakthrough technology. I'm really excited to be here to talk to all of you and discuss the Taara technology, which we've already deployed with partners in over a dozen countries. So over the next 15 to 20 minutes, I'll be talking about Taara's technology, the use cases and applications with partners around the world, after which I'll be happy to answer any questions. If we run out of time, we'll be there at the FBA event in Nashville next month, and we can continue our dialogue. Next slide, please. So let me say a few words about X, which is truly one of the most exciting places to innovate and create new technologies. X is a place where we create moonshots, and Taara is a moonshot at X. So the question is, what is a moonshot? It's a breakthrough innovation that may seem impossible, but when it's made possible, it could change the course of history. So at X, the way we create moonshots is we apply radical technology developments to some of the hardest problems with the mission and goal that the solution should be significantly better than anything that exists in the market. So on this slide, you can see some of the moonshots that X has delivered over the years. You may be familiar with the self-driving cars, which are called and launched as Waymo, the autonomous drone deliveries launched as Wings. Tidal is a moonshot for ocean health. But the one we are going to talk about today and where I want to draw your attention to is the small picture on the left bottom, which is Taara. Taara means the North Star. And let me now explain a little bit about Taara, what our mission is, and what our applications are. Next slide, please. So our mission at Taara is to expand global connectivity by providing affordable high-speed internet using beams of light, which many of you know as free space optic communications, and in short form, FSOC. We've actually made significant enhancements to FSOC to achieve this mission. Some of you may be familiar with FSOC solutions of the past, but I'll talk to you about all the development and new techniques we've implemented at Taara to make it a real robust and reliable solution. Think about Taara like fiber in the sky, but with reliability higher than the typical aerial fiber that you see in many of the developing countries, especially. Next slide. So this is an important slide to send the real message of what we are doing to leapfrog in terms of technology. So all of us have seen over the past few decades that the world has been upgrading from 2G to 5G by moving towards higher frequencies. And the reason everyone moves towards higher frequencies is there's more spectrum available, which allows you to generate more bandwidth, and data connections are at a higher speed to the end users. We just see the same thing, the same pattern in the satellite communication market, where the satellite operators are moving from KU band to KA band to V band just to get more blocks of spectrum to provide higher data services. But as many of you know, these RF spectrums are getting really crowded, and they are now being auctioned at premium. They're very expensive. And not only is that the case, but you start hitting a wall of propagation performance at these higher frequencies. So we see a lot of the vendors and solution providers come up with very complicated solutions like MIMO and XPIC just to extract some extra bandwidth from the limited spectrum that's available. So Taara is leapfrogging the RF spectrum, and we operate directly into the optical spectrum. So our solution operates at 193 terahertz, and there's just enormous spectrum and capacity we can generate on our links using the optical spectrum. Not only that, the beams are so narrow, that it's nearly impossible to intercept or interfere with these beams, so the data transmission is highly secure. We at Taara believe that the market needs to move to the optical spectrum for new technology to be invented over the decades to come. The RF spectrum has been the prime spectrum in the past, but it's running out of space. And really, we believe we are where the future lies for communications in the decades to come. Next slide. Next slide, please. Thank you. So, as I mentioned, we made significant improvements to traditional free space optic technology. We've created a dual mirror solution in our terminals that allow for very quick alignment and connecting the terminals, even when you place them over long distances up to 20 kilometers. And not only do these links remain locked, they continue to stay in position and don't lose connectivity with typical tower sways or any disturbance like a bird flying in the path between the terminals. In order to make our links robust, we have developed special techniques like error correction, automatic repeat request, adaptive rate, and single channel operation. This allows us to have high reliability over the air over these free space optical links. And in the case of adverse weather, we can also integrate our solution with other technologies like fiber to create an automatic backup solution, which allows again for high availability in poor weather conditions. Today, our current technology is capable of transmitting 20 gigabits in each direction. So bidirectional 20 gigabits for distances up to 20 kilometers, as long as you have line of sight. And the beauty of using the optical spectrum is, number one, it's not licensed, so there are no recurring license fees. Number two, there is no interference. So let's say you wanted to increase the bandwidth to 40 gigabits. All you have to do is put two Taara terminals at the same endpoints, and you would double from 20 to 40 gigabits. So you can keep doing that, and some of our partners have actually implemented links at 40 gigabits. You can go to 60, 80, even 100 gigabits. So we can generate true fiber-like speeds over the air. Furthermore, these terminals are very lightweight, only 30 kilograms, so any single person can carry them. And a Taara terminal consumes only 40 watts of power. So it can run on alternate energy sources like solar power, which is very handy when you're in locations where traditional power sources are not available. And finally, the lasers are Class 1M eye safe, so there's no harm to the installers or any human being or any organism that may even cross the path between the terminals. Next slide, please. So not only did we want to make Taara reliable and robust, we wanted to make sure our links can be deployed with ease and can be deployed quickly. This is a very important characteristic of our technology. I'll show you some applications on how Taara links are installed, and then they're redeployed to other locations when fiber is available. And that can be enabled if they're simple to install and quick to install. As you can see in this picture, we've got installations in all sorts of locations, not just on cell towers, on rooftops, on sides of buildings, and even on a simple tripod where there's no other communication infrastructure. Next slide. Okay, so we have partnered with fiber operators around the world, and there are several use cases and applications. I'll walk you through some of these in the next few minutes. But it all boils down to two primary applications. The first is when you do have fiber between two endpoints, but you're concerned about fiber cuts. And we see this very common, not just in developing countries, but right here at home in North America. So in these cases, our partners are putting Taara links as a backup or a redundant path to fiber. or if they have to repair the fiber, they can keep the communication going using Taara. The second case is when it takes a long time to get a permit for fiber, or it's very costly to trench fiber, or it takes a long time. And there's pent up demand for connectivity, and the communities that are waiting to be connected. A lot of our fiber partners are using Taara as a temporary resource. They're connecting the community. Then I'll show you several examples, and they're getting the connections going. And when the permits are released and they can lay fiber, they either redeploy the Taara links to another similar location, or they leave the Taara links there with fiber to act as a redundant path. And the reason our solution has worked so well for the fiber operators is, number one, we offer very high bandwidth. So it's like truly like fiber. So we call it fiber speeds, 20 gigabits or 40 gigabits or higher. There is no cost of any licensing, and you can easily use these links without any fear of interference. So we've had lots of partnerships with fiber operators. Let me now walk you through some of those examples. Next slide, please. Okay, so here is a Taara application in Africa. We have partnered with Econet and their subsidiary Liquid Telecom. Econet is one of the largest fiber providers in Africa. They have over 100,000 kilometers of fiber footprint. As you can see in this picture, they are bringing subsea fiber into the country of Kenya at a port called Mombasa. From Mombasa, they have laid fiber to go all the way to Nairobi, over 500 kilometers. However, there's a very dense neighborhood near Nairobi, few kilometers away, called Pipeline, where it's impossible to trench or lay fiber, and there's a lot of pent-up demand. Next slide, please. So from the data center in Nairobi, an ISP called POA Internet has deployed a couple of Taara links to quickly extend the connection from Nairobi into this community. And you can see they're using two links, two terminals next to each other on each end, to bring as much as 40 gigabits of data traffic into this pipeline, into this neighborhood called Pipeline. Next slide, please. So this is an aerial picture of Pipeline. As you can see, it's an extremely dense, low to middle income, peri-urban community with a very vibrant ecosystem. There are about 50,000 people living in 10,000 homes, and these are all typically mid-rise apartment blocks. And it was not possible for POA Internet to get local loop fiber. So after they brought Taara into the community, they are using fiber to the home, FTTH, to drive an incredible amount of traffic from this neighborhood back all the way into the main fiber point of presence. And we see monthly subscriptions and terabytes of data coming out of this neighborhood. So this is an example where we partnered with a fiber provider to act as the middle mile between the long haul fiber that was in the, till Nairobi, and the last mile, which was fiber to the home. We acted as the middle mile, and Pipeline today has a thriving ecosystem. In fact, some of the people there are even reselling the extra bandwidth to other users because we bring so much bandwidth into the whole neighborhood. Next slide, please. So here is another example of a different application in India with Airtel. So at the height of the pandemic, Airtel was having challenges to obtain timely right of way to lay fiber in these high-rise residential districts. So Airtel started deploying Taara links to extend the backhaul capacity. And over a year, they were able to sign up more than 500 customers. This validated the demand from these communities. And when they received the right of way, they laid fiber to connect to these communities. and they are currently using Taara links as a redundant path to the fiber. They repeated the same approach in different parts of India. And as you can see in one of these locations shown in this picture in Mumbai, there's a water body that makes it difficult or impossible to lay fiber to reach this high-rise community. So this was another application where, due to terrain obstacles, you can't lay fiber. So you can use Taara till you are, ready to lay fiber going around the water body and connecting these communities, or you can just leave the Taara links there serving the community. Next slide, please. So this is a very interesting application, and I love to talk about this, what our partner has done here also in India. So here was a challenge where a partner wanted to serve very dense communities that it was impossible to trench fiber. You can see on the pictures on the right how dense these locations are, and it's virtually impossible to trench fiber, and the quality of aerial fiber is really, really poor in this part of the world. So the goal was to reach a place on the top of the map called Katauli, as you can see, all the way from a location down close to New Delhi called Loni, over a 150-kilometer span. And it was impossible, like I said, to find fiber along that whole path. So the red lines you see there, those are the Taara links. They're shown as WOC or wireless optical communications. There were a few locations where there were fiber, but this was a relay that our partner set up with back-to-back Taara links, and they were able to bring all the data traffic within a matter of a few months, 150 kilometers away. If they had to trench fiber in this case, it would have taken them years and millions of dollars. Once the backbone is set up as a mix of fiber and Taara, they are using RF technology to serve the last mile. But all those dense neighborhoods shown in green, they were able to cover within a matter of a few months, as opposed to waiting for years to lay fiber. Again, it's a great application on how you can connect back-to-back Taara links to extend the reach beyond our typical 20-kilometer distance. Next one, please. So here's an example in the Caribbean with Liberty Latin America. They were using Taara in the middle of a repair to their subsea cable. So it was a planned repair time, and they didn't want any outage to the Caribbean islands. So they installed a Taara link between two islands, Saint Martin and Anguilla, over an 18-kilometer distance. And while they were repairing the subsea cable, we were transmitting over 10 gigabits of data traffic from Anguilla. And then once the repair was completed, they're still using Taara as a redundant path to their fiber. Just a couple more slides, and then I can wrap up. Next slide, please. So here's an example of how Taara is being used in North America. This is an example of an ISP in the US serving rural communities. They have deployed Taara links to explore the potential for new fiber locations without needing to invest upfront. So they are using Taara to gain first mover advantage and to check out the demand. And once they can validate there's enough demand to lay fiber, they will redeploy our links to other similar rural communities and repeat the pattern. Again, this is a temporary solution till fiber is made available or makes economic sense to lay into certain communities, but you can serve these remote locations with Taara right off the bat. And finally, if we can move to the last slide, please. Here is another application in North America. We are seeing a lot of interest from operators to support high capacity events. So think about sporting events, think about festivals, think about concerts. So in a lot of these locations, despite having fiber, there is a need to have a redundant path to make sure that if there's any cut in fiber, you don't lose all the data traffic from all the streaming video that people are going through with their phones in these high events where thousands of people are collecting into the same location. So we finished several successful demonstrations of our technology for events, and we're looking at a much larger scale rollout in North America with one of our partners. So I hope that clarified or showed you good applications where Taara's free space optics is a real good complement with fiber. We are using it either as a redundant path or as a temporary fill-in till fiber is available. And we've created partnerships with fiber operators around the world, and we are really looking forward to doing the same with the broadband community here in North America. With that, I conclude, and thank you for your time, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Well, Sanjay, really interesting, and a lot of great questions have come in. So, how do we want to think about free space optics? I mean, it sounds to me from the use cases you have is one, explore new areas you can be able to set up. Two, to be able to provide some redundancy. Three, to get to some areas that very difficult to get fiber deployed. Is that the way we want to think about it? Is just either a you know get things going quicker while you're putting in fiber or and do some fiber backup and just I mean was that the use case?
Absolutely, Gary. You hit the nail on the head. Those are the real application with fiber providers. Think about cases where you got to go a little distance, but you don't have the permits, but you have demand in those locations. Just like I showed the case of, the pipeline community, just a few kilometers from a city center, but they couldn't lay fiber for a different reason because of the
Yeah,
challenges of trenching. But think of a similar situation where you just don't have the permits and you got to wait a year or longer. Why not serve the community with Taara? And once you have your permits, you can move those links and redeploy them somewhere else. But absolutely, those are the right
exactly. Yeah, I
cases.
mean, when I think about like, I hear all kinds of horror stories about you're going up the interstate and then you have to go across a little bit of tribal land and you could beam
Exactly.
across that tribal land while you're waiting 2 years for your permit and so forth, right?
Yeah.
So we have, I mean, a lot of interest here, but some people are trying to understand the magic. So one of our audience members is a PhD in DWM networks, and he's saying that he has a master's thesis in Gaussian beams through turbulent air problems, and he wants to first congratulate you on this, but also want to understand how you overcome uh, Scintillation, what is it?
Scintillations. Yeah.
Scintillation. Okay, I don't even know what
Yeah.
that is. So what is
Yeah.
scintillation? And
It's a great question. And honestly, that is the area we've done a lot of work over the last 10 years of research and investment of hundreds of millions of dollars into our technology. We actually have measured our performance in different weather conditions with scintillations. So fog, for example, is a challenge. Remember, this is optics. So if you can't see the other side and you have fog and you have scintillations in the path, that's a challenge. So we've actually done a lot of work collecting data from the field and making continuous improvements in our technology to to battle through those weather conditions. Not only that, the question was really a good question because sometimes you may think, how do I know how far I'm going to go, or what's availability going to be under different weather conditions? That's the root of the question. So we've also developed a planning tool where we've got weather data for all over North America and other parts of the world, combined with real world measurements from different locations where different weather conditions, where there's scintillations in the air. And we have created a prediction tool that our partners are now using to determine if I have to go from point A to point B, how far can I go? What's the availability going to be? So the answer of the question is there's a lot of technology improvements we have made to address the scintillation concern. There's a lot of measured data we've collected from the field. There are a lot of unique characteristics that obviously, for obvious reasons, I'm not able to share. That's our secret sauce. But we have battled through those over the last 5 or 6 years of installations and now come up with a really reliable solution. Also, I'll say something. What I'm presenting today is our current technology. There's a lot more to come from Taara, and we continue to improve over these conditions of weather that our guest has brought about.
Well, tons of questions about whether, um, but one of the questions is, what's the cost per a 20 gig link, roughly, come bigger in the bread box, kind of.
So we discuss costs under NDA, Gary, so we generally don't discuss it, but I can tell you the cost economics for Taara are significantly better than laying any fiber. And when you look at, the typical cost of other solutions, the recurring cost of, licensing spectrum, our units are much smaller, so the cost of rental on the tower is much lower. When you put the total cost of operation, it's a no-brainer for the amount of bandwidth we bring in. But in terms of, look, we have different partnership models. It's not always about a product cost. We work on different models of, what we call CapEx models and OpEx models. We can discuss with people in person when we meet them in Nashville, but we make sure that their business case obviously looks really good with our solution.
All right, we're going to go over a little bit on time because I'm really interested in some of these questions. Um,
Sure.
so tell me a little bit, do you see this as a viable alternative for fixed wireless?
So fixed wireless is typically used in the last mile. If you see our applications, they're typically in the middle mile, right? So we're not necessarily going into the building. We're bringing a big data pipe into a
The more
community.
transport oriented.
Correct. But
Okay.
I'll leave it by saying that that's the technology of today. And Tara is going to bring a lot of new and exciting technology that'll span a lot more miles than the middle mile. But these are things that we'll disclose over time. We'll be announcing new solutions. But today, fixed wireless, we actually backhaul them, where
So
needed.
it'd be more complementary, um,
Yes.
like you would be able to do free space optics to a fixed wireless
Yeah.
radio.
And frankly, 20 gigabits is a little overkill for a last mile. Last mile, they're generally in hundreds of megabits or a gigabit. So you got to figure out. But we are seeing demand coming that where the data requirements are surging.
Uh,
So we do 20 gigabits no matter what distance you're going to go. We don't fade off with distance. But again, I'll leave it by saying this is our technology of today. We have a lot more coming, and we'll be keeping you informed about it.
and then one of the questions came in is, what do you use typically for backhaul? Is this put on fiber, or what do you do for backhaul?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Backhaul. So you have your beaming. So what your device? How do you get it back to the network?
Yeah, so typically we are beaming between a fiber point of presence between one end of our terminal to another end. From the other end, you can have FTTH, you can fix wireless access, Wi-Fi. So you have all these different access solutions, and typically fiber on the other side, and you can connect them through routers or typical, switches and routers in the network. So we are actually a kind of a backhaul in the middle mile. But then on one side is typically fiber, on the other side is generally the last mile.
Well, this is great stuff, Sanjay, and I can see some applications in BEAD where, getting to tribal areas in Colorado
Yeah,
just got some money on the Front Range, so I know there's tons of line of sight and rain freight and all kinds of questions. People can come see you at the Proof of Concept Pavilion at Fiber Connect, and
absolutely.
I just want to thank you for, sharing your latest research and things that you're working on at the X Moonshot at Taara. And with that, I hope you guys can get together next week. We're going to be with Evan Friedman, the Fiber Broadband Association's conference chair, and Rich Williams, our program director, to get a preview of our upcoming Fiber Connect 2024 Nashville, July 28th to 31st. This is going to be the biggest and best fiber broadband conference in the world this year, and you'll get to hear the inside of all the great things we have planned. So we'll see you guys next Wednesday, and we'll see Sanjay in Nashville in about a little over a month. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you.